So we've been talking about this. We know Ian could cause some power outages.
Yeah, and so while you're getting your home ready, today JEA got its staging areas ready, even bringing in help from out of town. Crews are doing what they can proactively, like trimming trees. But if the power goes out, there are different priority levels. So level 1, that includes hospitals, first responders, and nursing homes. Level 2 is neighborhood clusters with outages. And then level 3 will be individual homes who lose power. JEA is now pausing disconnections for people who are late paying their utility bills. We reached out to the company today, the utility today, to see how many customers are still without power. As of 5 o'clock last night, 527 JEA cut off customers' utilities without restoration, so about 527. Now, if you do not have power, you can still get weather updates from us here at First Coast News. We are partnering with 2 FM radio stations during Hurricane Ian. All you have to do is tune in to 96.1 WEJX, Jacksonville's best variety, also 99.9 Gator Country, and you can stay connected and get the latest updates during Ian.
And if you lose power and use a generator as a backup to power your home, there are some safety measures you will need to take. So these tips, they're coming from the American Red Cross that I'm about to share with you. The most important rule, never operate a generator inside your home or in any enclosed space like a garage. Keep it outside, away from doors and windows. Keep it dry. Turn it off and let it cool down before refueling it. And if you can, plug appliances directly into the generator.
All right, let's get a check now on where Ian is. Michaela Lucero is joining us now. Michaela?
Hey, Heather, thank you. And hey, Anthony, great tips with the generator. Also, if you can, try to get a CO2 monitor so you can know if that is emitting any bad gas for you. All right, here is a look at what satellite and radar looks like at the moment of where Ian is turning out there in the Gulf of Mexico, heading towards Miami. Now, we've been telling you a lot about how this is very similar to Irma. So let's kind of put it in perspective a little bit. This is what Irma looked like about 2 days out before we were starting to see impacts in our area. We were already starting to see very, very heavy rainfall and very gusty winds. It was a large storm. When we put Ian on top of it, you can see Ian is far smaller than what Irma was. So yes, Irma brought a lot more rain and very gusty winds, but it's because it was just so much of a bigger storm than what Ian is. Now let's kind of put some numbers on that to give you a better idea of what those rains and the winds were looking like. So when we look at our numbers, we're seeing that Irma had winds of about 40 miles an hour as far as 400 miles out from the eye of the storm. When we compare that to Ian, Ian has 40-mile-per-hour winds, only about 150 out from the eye of the storm. So we are seeing a pretty big difference in how far out the gusty winds are going, as well as the pressure difference. We saw our Irma down to 530 millibars, and the pressure for Ian right now is down to just about 952. Now, for a detailed look onto where the storm is going, let's get you over to Tim Deegan.
All right, thank you, Michaela. Again, and we're talking about Irma a lot, even though this is Ian, is because so many of you were here in 2017, and you know exactly what happened when we had particular numbers. If you're new to the area, try to meet a neighbor maybe who was here during 2017, because the numbers, they're good to have, but if they really don't mean anything to you, and we certainly learned with Irma, with Faye of 10 years prior and storms prior to that, that sometimes truly 1 foot can be the difference between a lot of water in the road versus water into the house or in our business. Okay, let's break it down for you county by county, because we're going to have a variety of conditions out there. Clay and Putnam County, we're looking for you to have about 6 to 12 inches of rain. The St. John's going to rise about 3 to 5 feet above normal. The Black Creek is the big variable. If we get more in the way of 12 inches, it's going to be a major flood on the Black Creek, more like 6 than significant, but it could be that a lot of the new building there has helped that scenario. Winds are going to be gusty, occasionally isolated gusts of 55, but more like about 20 to 35 for much of the period. Glen, Camden, and Nassau County, 5 to 10 inches of rain, water level rise of about 4 to 5 feet. For Irma, you had about 6.5 feet, isolated gusts to about 55 miles per hour. Columbia County, these numbers might even be lower now that we've adjusted Ian a little farther off to the west. And again, any isolated tornadoes will be to the right of the track. So if that goes just offshore of us, that could be good news. As we get towards southeastern Georgia, numbers even less. Going to keep a close watch on the rivers for you. Here's another way to look at the projection of Ian. We're just talking about sustained winds of 40 miles per hour or more. And notice how the size of that decreases tremendously, not only because it's going to be over land, but because dry air is going to be pulled into it. We're going to take a look at that. Now, here's the big three. This generally covers Duval and St. John's. I wanted to show you those other counties because there the numbers are a little bit different. So again, sticking with the idea that the worst of our weather will be Wednesday through Thursday, but the highest risk, the most dangerous time of widespread street flooding that might get into homes and businesses is going to be between about 1 a.m. Thursday and 4 p.m. Friday. And we're being specific because it's dependent on when the high tides are. There's going to be 4 high tides that we'll watch closely, and we're going to talk about that in detail at 5:30. The water level rise overall about 4 feet. Remember, for Irma in northeastern Florida, it was 5.5 feet. In southeastern Georgia, it was 6.5 feet. By the weekend, if the plan goes along as forecast, then Ian up toward Charleston and racing away, sunshine building back to the first coast.
Whenever there is a tropical storm or a hurricane, one of the questions we get asked, are the bridges going to close? So let's talk about it. The threshold to close a bridge is 40 mile per hour sustained winds. Sustained means it has to be 40 miles per hour or more for a minute or more. So keep that in mind. This is not just strong wind gusts. This has to be sustained winds. And the bridges are at different elevations. So the bridges most likely to see those sustained winds would be the bridges at higher elevations, like the Matthews, the Hart, the Dames Point Bridge. So if we see bridge closures, one of those bridges would likely be the one to close. And just because one may close, it does not mean all of the bridges will close. Again, has to be 40 mile per hour sustained winds. At the lower elevation bridges like the Maine, the Acosta, the Fuller Warren, they likely will remain open because you're less likely to see the sustained winds at those kind of lower elevations. And if there is a closure of a bridge, it would be brief. This would not be an hours-long closure. It would just be brief until it is safe to be reopened. So if you are going to be traveling, really pay attention. We'll put out information about the bridges, but when could you see this? Probably either between Thursday morning or Friday morning. That kind of 24-hour period is when we're going to see some of the worst of the weather. That's when we could see those sustained winds. Even if you're out driving, even if you're not going across a bridge, you really need to be careful, especially if you drive in a truck, because the wind can really get a hold of a truck. And if there is going to be a bridge closure, there's really not much warning. It's just kind of a decision that's made in that moment. The bridge is closed, and then once it's safe, it's reopened. So as soon as we get information, we'll let you know. But remember, just because one closes, it does not mean they are all closed. So just have an alternate route kind of planned in your mind.